Welcome into the LSU Sports Insider podcast. Today is Thursday, August the 21st. I'm Zach Ewing with Scott Rabelais and Koki Riley. It's our season predictions episode. We made it, boys. We're here. We are actually 2 days away from the start of college football, technically speaking, but we're a week away from like the actual week one Thursday night.
There's a top 25 matchup
extravaganza. But yeah, Iowa State, Kansas State on Saturday. That's pretty good. So we are going to talk. Wait a minute.
Oh, thank you.
We must have some breaking news here. We just got a note.
I've just been handed a note.
What just happened?
Auburn has claimed yet another national championship.
Oh,
So
well,
it makes it
that's big
10
news.
now. Yeah, so it makes it 10 now for Auburn. So good for you, Auburn. Way to go. I'm so proud of you.
You know, it's funny because Rab told me he needed a minute to riff on Auburn. And then he had this brilliant idea. Rab, what is with claiming national championships, man? What are we doing?
Well, this speaks to the craziness of college football, and in a way it's endearing, but at the same time, it's just like, come on, man. I mean, you can't just claim. They claimed 1958 as a national championship. They're not recognized by anybody. The NCAA recognizes as a national champion in 1958. But LSU and Iowa actually, Iowa won like the football writers title that year. But Auburn finished fourth in the AP and UPI polls. But we're national champions. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. I'm embarrassed for Auburn.
I agree. The 04 one, I'll give them half a pass on. That one was legitimately controversial, having actually lived through 2000.
They were undefeated. And USC had to vacate the title.
Yeah,
but they didn't get to play. I saw Auburn play 3 times that year. USC would have beaten them. I'm convinced.
I mean, I think they would have too. But I could see where you'd say, hey, we didn't lose a game. We won the SEC.
Yes.
That one I'll give them half a pass for. The rest of this stuff, going back and trying to rewrite history 50 and 70 years ago, is just
115 years ago. They claimed one from 1910.
What are we doing? What are we doing here?
Yeah.
All right. So
I've said my piece.
Enough about Auburn. Okay. Listen, we're going to talk 2025, and I don't think any of us picked Auburn. Now, Auburn may pick themselves later, 100 years down the road.
No matter who wins. Yeah.
I had him in my poll.
I think they're going to be better than they were last
year.
year.
My poll.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to pick them. You know who I will pick is Jerry Lane Cadillac, because LSU Sports Insider is brought to you by Jerry Lane Cadillac. You can command the road in the Cadillac, where luxury, power, and presence come together. Experience it today at Jerry Lane Cadillac. So what we're going to do today is pick our record for LSU. That's going to be the bulk of the show. We're going to talk about LSU. We're not going to give away our Clemson picks. That's coming on Monday's show. But we'll give you a record. We'll kind of tell you where we think the landmines are. It might spoil a Clemson pick here or there. And then we'll talk about what LSU's fate ultimately will be. Then at the end of the show, we're going to throw in some SEC championship picks, maybe some SEC teams who will make the playoffs, some dark horses, and then ultimately our pick for the national champion. So that is the plan for today's show. First, just a little bit of news, and this awards segment is brought to you by the Baton Rouge Clinic, your trusted healthcare provider in the heart of Baton Rouge. Whether you're in need of primary care, specialist services, or urgent care, the Baton Rouge Clinic has you covered with a team of dedicated and experienced professionals. Visit BatonRougeClinic.com to learn more or to schedule your appointment today. The Baton Rouge Clinic, caring for generations. And that update is that LSU had 7 players named to the coaches' preseason All-SEC team, including 3 on the first team, including, notably, Garrett Nussmeier as the first-team quarterback. He was not the first-team quarterback according to the media's preseason SEC team.
But he was...
I believe that was that Sellers?
Was Lenore Sellers.
Lenore Sellers.
No, Lenore Sellers was number 1.
Sellers?
Garrett
Okay.
was second team, and Arch Manning was third. I think Garrett made the second team AP preseason All-America too, so up there. So, hey, plenty of respect for Garrett Nussmeier, and well deserved. I mean, he threw for 4,000 yards last year. I think if they can protect him, and if he can cut down on the interceptions a little. I think he's got a lot of weapons to work with, and I think he's going to have a great season. So I think that honor is well deserved.
All right, so let's dig into our predictions. We're going to start with LSU. Wilson Alexander originally was slated to be here. He got tied up with something. He's not here. But we have his predictions too. So I'm going to read them before the 3 of us give our predictions. Wilson picked 9-3 for LSU. Now, notably, when he texted me this, he did say, I don't feel good about any of these predictions. And if LSU's defense is a little bit better than I think 10-2 is certainly in the cards and a playoff and all that sort of thing. But he went with 9-3. Koki, what say you?
I went with 10-2. I don't feel fantastic about it, but when I look at the rest of the SEC, I still think this is one of the better rosters. I think they have the best quarterback in the conference. Just to sort of speak to Rab's point earlier about who deserves to be the first team All SEC. I mean, they have one of the best, if not the best, linebacking cores in the country between Harold Perkins and Whit Weeks. They're way deeper on the defensive line, at least. They're much more talented in the secondary. Their receivers are excellent. And really, if they can run the ball and protect the quarterback, there's no reason why this team can't go 11-1, or even undefeated if you really want to be optimistic. But I'm going with 10-2 because there's enough downside with the offensive line and with the running game, potential downside at least with those two aspects of the team, to say that they'll lose at least 2 games. And it's not an easy schedule. It's not a terribly tough schedule. There are tougher schedules out there. Mississippi State, poor Mississippi State being one of them. But I think overall, this is a really good team, and I'll save my thoughts on whether they make the playoff with that 10-2 record later.
I think 10-2 is probably the minimum. 9-3. I mean, we saw, like with Alabama and South Carolina last year, there will be some discussion. It depends on how everything else plays out.
Yeah.
But to really feel good about it, I think 10-2 is the minimum. We agree with that.
Yeah, definitely. In the future, maybe if the playoff is expanded to 14 or 16 teams, you'll see some 9-3 teams in there. And if you lose the right games, if you have the best losses, you might be a 9-3 team. But you can't expect to make it if you're not 10-2. If you're LSU, so I also go with 10-2. Oh yeah, are you ready for my prediction?
Yeah, go.
Oh,
for
okay.
it.
I'm also going with 10-2. I just can't pick them to beat Clemson. Though I know there's a chance, but I won't make that pick. And then they lose one of the road games to Ole Miss or Alabama, probably Alabama. Ole Miss that's a big one. Then if you lose the Clemson game, certainly. So. And I think that gets you in the playoff if you're LSU. And if you're 7-1, you might be, depending on the tiebreakers, you certainly could be in the SEC championship game. I think once again, I don't think anyone's going to make it through the conference undefeated. As I said last year, and I was proven right, and I think it's going to be the case again this year. So I think 10-2 for LSU. I feel very similar to Koki. Offensive line, running game. If they can get those things together, I think they have a lot more depth in a lot of key places, and that's great. Obviously, Garrett Nussmeier has to stay healthy, but if everything breaks right for LSU, it can be a championship contending team. If not, they could go like 8-4, and people in Baton Rouge are melting down. But I'm thinking that most things are going to go right for LSU, and if they stay healthy, they'll be 10-2 and in the playoff.
All right, I'm going 9-3, and I do agree with you guys that 10-2 is probably more likely than 8-4. But I think either one of those is possible too. I mean, look,
Sure.
Clemson and Alabama, LSU will be reasonably significant underdogs in both of those games. We know they're a 4-point underdog at Clemson. It might even be 4.5 now. At Alabama, I mean, we'll see. That's later in the season. But if you look at the look-ahead lines, that's still Alabama by more than a field goal. You are clearly the underdog in that game. Doesn't mean you can't win. Ole Miss is the other one where I think right now on the look-ahead line, LSU is like a 1.5-point underdog. Again, game is still a month away. Like, things could change. LSU beats Clemson. If Ole Miss doesn't look good, LSU could certainly be favored. But those are your 3, obvious toughest tests. And I don't know that it's reasonable to expect LSU to win more than one of those. Could they? If they win more than one of those, we could be talking about a special season. But assuming they just win one of those, that's 2 losses. So now to get to 10-2, you've got to run the table everywhere else. And that means, sweeping a home schedule that includes Texas A&M, that includes Florida, that includes South Carolina, all top 20 caliber teams. And it means going to Norman in the final week of the regular season and beating an Oklahoma team that figures to be a lot better. They could be a top 20 caliber team. So unless you are going to be winning, all of your toughest games, you have left yourself with I think we tend, at this point in the season, guys, to look too much like game by game and say, well, win that game, they'll lose that one, they'll win that one, and win that one. That's not how this works. Like normally and that's why where I kind of want to go with this is like, of those three, well, actually, let's just, because I think Ole Miss is probably, we would agree, is the most likely to win of those three. But of those two, Clemson and Alabama, which is a more likely win for LSU?
Oh boy, probably Alabama. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but the fact that Clemson's the first game, and the fact that and the fact that the quarterback that Clemson has, Cade Klubnik, will be ready for that first game, makes me feel like that. I don't know. It makes me feel like that's probably the bigger and tougher task. And to me, like, Clemson's my number one team in the country heading into the preseason. That game's on the road, so like there literally couldn't be a tougher first game for LSU to have, in my opinion. So as good as I think Alabama is, and I think they're really, really darn good, and I know all the history there and everything, I still think it's Clemson. That's a tougher game.
Rab, you agree?
Yeah, I do actually. I think I still have to see that Alabama is still the Alabama of old. I know they've got talent, but are they still that killer elite team that they were under Nick Saban in the second year under DeBoer? I'm not exactly convinced of that just yet, but we'll see. They should go and handle Florida State in their first game of the season. They're 2-touchdown favorites, so we'll see how good they look in a game like that. But Clemson, none of these games for LSU, by the way, you can say, well, they just can't win that game. There's just no way.
No.
There's not a game on the schedule that you say they can't win, but they can't get through them all. To your point, Zach, they can't get through all of them unscathed. I don't think, especially trying to.
If they do, they're 2019.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're trying to bring all this talent together. They only have 8 returning starters. I think most of the national champions. In recent memory, like the last 10 or 15 years, have had 11 returning starters or more. So that gives you an indication what else she's got to put together.
Well, the portal changes things, though. Like
that's true.
Look at a program like TCU, for example, that got into the playoff when it was a 4-team structure, and they just brought in a whole bunch of transfers, and they just happened to hit on all of them, and boom, wham,
Indiana
all of a sudden they're
year.
playing for the national title. Yeah. So
but that's kind of my point is. What you're talking about, Rab, is like last year at this point, we wouldn't have sat and gone, well, look, at Florida's a tough game. They might lose that game. At Texas A&M, they're going to lose that one. Like, that's not how we tend to go game by game and say, losses to Clemson and Alabama, they're going to win everything else. It doesn't work that way. I think it's more likely they actually win one of those games, but lose a couple of others somewhere. If we're talking
lose one somewhere else.
Yeah. And so I guess that's my next question. My follow-up question is, which is the most likely home game LSU loses? I think
Florida.
Florida, South Carolina, and Texas A&M are clearly your candidates here. The other home games LSU will be a huge favorite in. But we're talking about games here where Florida, South Carolina, Texas A&M, LSU will be favored in all of those games. But if you convert that to a probability and say, well, LSU is 65% to win each one of those games, or there's 60% to win one, 65 and 75. If you just do the math on that, right? Chances are they lose one of them. So
when it's not Alabama, LSU almost always wins at home. Like, they're so hard to beat at home, just historically. And if you think this roster is any better, and they're not facing a team like Alabama at home, which they're not, like, I'm just going to pick them to win those games. That's part of what leads me to this. It helps makes the decision making a little bit easier when it comes to deciding what the record should be, because they're just so dominant at home every year, even when they have a quote unquote weaker team. Like the first year under Brian Kelly, they beat Alabama at home. They've only lost 2 games at home under Brian Kelly, despite some of the up and downs that they've had. And if we think this is their best roster and they're not facing a top 5 team, I don't think they are, then it's hard to pick against them. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, LSU's last loss at Tiger Stadium to anyone besides Alabama was Tennessee, October 8th, 2022.
Yeah.
So it's been 3 years. I mean, so maybe they do just sweep through all these, but if they don't, you're saying Florida is the most likely team to get them early in the year.
Yeah, it's early in the year. And if they have to win one of those two games, so the Florida and the Clemson game, they have to win one of those two. Because if they don't, if you lose both, now you're screwed, right? Because you have Alabama still left on your schedule.
Then
you have all these other teams
win
that
out,
you mentioned. You have to win out, and then the season's going to feel like it's over, even if it isn't technically over.
Yeah, I agree. Florida's a big game. But by the way, I didn't give my answer. I think Clemson's a more likely win for LSU of those two.
Ooh, okay.
I think they've made this Clemson game like the freaking Super Bowl. And we've talked about this before, how that's a double-edged sword. I mean, that's really risky to do that, because if you lose it, you got to pick yourselves up. I think LSU's talented enough to go in there and surprise Clemson. I think Alabama's going to be better than people think. Spoiler alert. So I think Clemson's the more likely win. But going back to the topic at hand, Scott, what is the most likely home loss for LSU?
I'd say Florida. If you tell me how healthy DJ Lagway is going to be, it seems like the guy is always hurt.
That's
true.
So
that's a
I
great
would say
point.
South Carolina. I would say South Carolina. LSU. I'm still trying to figure out how they won that game in Columbia last year. I mean, it just seemed impossible. They were down 17-0 to start the game, and then the Nora Sellers got hurt, and if he doesn't get hurt, I don't think they win that game last year on the road. And he's really good, and they're good too. It's hard to kind of wrap your head around South Carolina being that much of a threat, because LSU's only lost to them once, and that was like 1930 or something like that. So it's not too much success for South Carolina against LSU. But I would say South Carolina.
I think
this should be a little different.
They just lost a lot from last year's team, and I don't think they totally reloaded from all that talent that left for the NFL. I ranked them like more mid-tier, like lower, like higher teens. When I mean higher teens, like 17, 18 range, because I mean, when you have Lenore Sellers and you have Dylan Stewart, that's a great start. The rest of the team is where I have some question marks for sure.
I agree. South Carolina takes a step back. I think they do. I think they kind of played a little bit above their head last year. They're kind of the hot team.
They had a lot of talent last year.
And I think Lenore Sellers is really good. Like, I'm not, and so I think they'll be relevant just because of the quarterback. But they struck me a little bit like last year's Missouri. 2023 kind of played above their head. Everybody's kind of hyping them up. It's hard for teams like that don't have the depth and lose some talent to the NFL. Doesn't mean they're not going to be, like, Missouri was fine last year, but they just weren't quite as good. And I think that could be where South Carolina is this year. I don't know if I believe it, but I'll just play devil's advocate and argue for the third choice, and that's Texas A&M.
Yeah.
If
Lagway's hurt, like Rab said, I would pick Texas A&M.
Texas A&M is that series has been crazy. How the home team wins every single year. It's been like 7 straight years the home team wins. So you think LSU would win? I really like Mike Elko. I think he may finally unlock what they have been trying to find in College Station. We'll see. I mean, it's kind of a believe it when you see it thing with them. But we saw what Marcel Reed did to this defense last year. If he improves a little bit, A&M's got some monsters up front. Like that's a difficult game. And it's in a difficult spot, by the way. You're playing it right before, now there's a bye in there, but you're playing right before Alabama, kind of in that stretch with Ole Miss. Then you go to Vandy, then you come home, where that could be difficult. But if we're talking most likely loss in a game in which LSU's probably favored, I'm actually going off of the board of the home games entirely and going at Oklahoma. Reed mentioned this because he wasn't on this podcast, so he gave his quick predictions on Monday, and he said he thinks LSU actually loses its third game at Oklahoma in Norman the Saturday after Thanksgiving. I could see that happening too.
Yeah, that could very
Especially
well
if it was
happen.
like sleeting and 30 or something like
freezing
that.
cold. I think Oklahoma, like, you could be talking about 9-2 teams possibly. That's optimistic for Oklahoma,
That's
but not crazy.
I'm pretty optimistic about Oklahoma this year. I just feel like
I also think Brent Venables could get fired before they play LSU.
yeah, that's also true. Yeah.
He could, and that's like college football, man. Especially in this day and age, we're throwing darts. We don't know.
Yeah, it's
But
almost impossible to make a strong prediction about the last game of the season, especially given where Oklahoma is in with their program. The floor's low and the ceiling's high with that team for sure.
All 5 of LSU's road games are losable. I mean, you can certainly make an argument they could lose any of those games. So
At Vandy?
Yeah, at Vandy too. They only beat them by a touchdown here last year.
Vandy beat Alabama last year, man. They could beat
them at home.
do it.
And Diego Papia's back, and
That's true.
I think I don't think LSU will lose at Vanderbilt, but I think it's not a game where they can just think, oh, this is the Vandy of old. We're just going to go in there and crush them. So LSU has to be on their toes. And I think to your your point about the emphasizing 1-0. We've seen the signs in the football complex going out there for practice. 1-0, 1-0, 1-0. They didn't probably take USC seriously enough last year. They were the better team. I thought the season proved that, but they didn't take them seriously enough, and they got caught. And obviously they're going to take Clemson seriously, but just the emphasis, a sense of urgency. I think there's a greater sense of urgency this year for LSU that could carry them to the win at Clemson, who's breaking, as I put in my column this week, they're breaking a new defensive coordinator, a whole new system. It's a good time for LSU to be playing them. It was a good time for USC to be playing LSU last year. LSU couldn't get off the field on third down.
That's a good defensive coordinator they brought in, though.
No question.
Like
I think they'll be very good eventually.
Doing. Yeah.
But they had a lot of really poor numbers last year. Are they just going to be defensively? Are they just going to be automatically better?
Well,
First
it's just
I don't know.
The defensive tackle Peter Woods has a shot at being the number 1 overall pick. On the edge, they're talented on the edge. They brought in Will Helt from Purdue. They added some transfers finally. They just have a lot of returning pieces, and they're all their key players from last year. While also they made a couple of additions in the portal with a guy like Helt, for example. So combine all that with bring back one of the better quarterbacks in the country, and Cade Klubnik, who's going to be a top 2 or 3 quarterback this year too. They're about as well-rounded as you want from a roster as you could possibly ask for a program like Clemson at this point. If there was a team like Ohio, there's no Ohio State heading into the season. There's no team where the roster is so overwhelmingly good that it's almost a sin not to pick them at number 1, which is by the end of the year we saw that with Ohio State. We don't have that this year, but in terms of a well-rounded put together roster, it's Penn State and Clemson. There's just not a lot of holes with either of those teams.
Yeah, and Koki is an AP voter, so it's interesting, and we've kind of started this discussion, but I do want to talk about the SEC at large. Before we launch into that, anything else that you guys are feeling? We're going to have a prediction show kind of on individual players and bold predictions for LSU next week, but anything else on this season as far as wins and losses that you want to throw out there?
Ole Miss is going to be interesting, but I'm not super optimistic about Ole Miss as the team. So I'm not as worried about that if I'm LSU.
I'm fascinated by that.
We're at 2 returning players, a brand new starting quarterback. He looked good for one series when he played last year. But there's just a lot of question marks, and at some point this transfer thing is going to catch up to them, and I'm just not willing to bet that it's going to work again for them this year, given how much this program leads into the portal.
Okay. This is kind of spur of the moment, but I've got the ESPN listing of LSU's schedule on my laptop here. And one of the things that they list is the cheapest ticket prices for each game. What do you guys think is the most expensive ticket, home or away, on LSU's schedule this year?
Clemson was like over $300 a ticket. So.
It is Clemson. It's $291 now. You can get in for $291. Second is Ole Miss.
Wow.
$232. Now, Ole Miss has a smaller stadium, supply and demand, probably LSU fans going up there, so that makes some sense. What do you think the most expensive home game is?
Ooh, that's
Florida.
Good. I'll say South Carolina.
It is Texas A&M, $146 to get in.
Well,
Tiger Stadium.
They're close, proximity and everything.
Yeah. So just third on the list is Alabama, $211 to get in. Fourth on the list is actually at Vanderbilt, $176. Now again, supply and demand. You got a lot of LSU fans going up there.
Sure.
Smaller stadium. But yeah, fourth on the list would be Texas A&M, $146. By the way, if you're looking for a deal, $18 for La Tech on September 6th, $14 for Southeastern or for Western Kentucky at Tiger Stadium. So those are your
If you want to
easiest ways to
Louisiana
always
Tech
see
is
LSU.
$4 more, right? Is that what you just said?
What's that?
Go to a game.
Yeah, La Tech's $4 more.
$4 more.
If you've never been to a game
Supply
in
and
Tiger
demand,
Stadium
right?
this year, I don't know why you'd be watching this
there you
podcast
go.
if you
There
hadn't.
you
Go
go.
to a game. Shell out $14 a ticket and go.
Yeah.
All right. That's our take on LSU's record. We're going to get into more SEC national predictions and finish up the show with that right after this word from our sponsors.
You know how far I've gone, now I'm home again. I'm feeling more alive these days than I've ever been.
At the Baton Rouge Clinic, our sole focus is to provide exceptional health care for your entire family so that you can get back to doing what you love most. We are caring for generations.
You give
Did they ask you to do the commercial too?
Yeah, but they just gave me one line.
Bet like a Caesar. Like, we're gonna sit here and we're gonna tell them how Caesar's Sportsbook is just so easy to use that you can watch and bet thousands of sports events, even some NFL games.
They'll probably show us betting on our favourite players and teams at all the Vegas hotspots too.
Like, we have time for that montage.
I told him I couldn't do it.
They couldn't afford me.
I think the biggest thing that separates us is our people. We have a really amazing staff that really care about their customers, really care about our product. At Jerry Lane Cadillac, we value trust and transparency above all else. We have a little bit of something for everyone, so whether it be the 2025 Escalade, any of the smaller crossover vehicles, the XT4, 5, and 6, we've also got a wide variety of new EVs, including the 2025 electric Escalade IQ. I think the product lineup right now is the best that it's ever been in Cadillac.
Welcome back to the LSU Sports Insiders. Zach Ewing hanging out with Scott Rabelais and Koki Riley on this Thursday. Subscribe to the LSU Sports Insider podcast. If you haven't already, what are you doing? We're here twice a week, basically all year round, doing football. We'll do some basketball, men's and women's side. We'll do lots of baseball in the spring. Koki and I fried out at the box a few times during the regional doing post-game shows. If you're an LSU fan, you got to be subscribed to the channel. While you're there, give us a thumbs up, leave a comment.
Gymnastics?
We do some gymnastics. Yeah, I mean, we are a full-service operation. If the volleyball team gets really good, we're going to cover some volleyball, okay?
That's right.
Yeah, all of it. I blanked on what I was going to say next, but we're doing SEC predictions. I had something else to say. I don't know what it was. Anyway, SEC champion picks. Wilson Alexander went with the Texas Longhorns. That's the chalk pick. Before y'all give your picks, is the Arch Manning stuff a little bit crazy? But here's something I should say. Jeff Duncan wrote a deep dive feature on Arch Manning that hit NOLA.com this morning. Very much worth your time. Compares Arch to his grandfather. Gets his grandfather's thoughts on the situation. It's really good the way he compares him. So go read that after you watch this podcast. But have we gone too far with the Arch Manning thing? Heisman favorite, Texas' national championship favorite. The guy started one game in his career. Or was it two? Maybe two.
Yes, to a degree. I've read and seen enough expert analysis from quarterback people who really understand the position and who watched his tape to think, and they think, and the scouts think too, that he is potentially the real deal. And I don't know, I kind of an interesting insight in him because I actually covered him in high school as well. The guy is really, really talented. He's way faster for a guy his size should be. He's got a cannon of an arm. Seems like he picks up the offense pretty well. And I'm very interested to see how the season sort of works for him. He already works in a very quarterback friendly system. So it's going to be really, really interesting. I'm cautiously optimistic for Arch. And I think Texas as a team has the highest ceiling among any team in the country. And if enough of those pieces hit, they're the best team. There's just enough question marks with new players and inexperience, but mostly on the offensive side of the ball, to where Arch is kind of like the spearhead of that, to where I'm not necessarily comfortable picking them as my best team right now. But if everything clicks, or if enough of it clicks, I think they're the best team.
Rab, have we gone too far with Arch?
I hear a voice in my head, and it's Steve Spurrier on the Pat Dooley podcast, a friend of mine in Gainesville, the former columnist there. He's thinking, didn't beat out Quinn Ewers last year, and Quinn Ewers a 7th round draft pick. Why did he play more last year?
I was so hoping you were going to do it in Spurrier voice. I am so pleased that you did that.
I'm sure he's got something to say about the Longhorns. And
did he comment on
Florida
Auburn claiming national titles? By the way,
I hope so. I haven't seen anything yet.
Yeah, we need Spurrier on.
I hope so. Look, in one way, the kid didn't ask for all this. He was born in this family with 2 uncles who are going to be Hall of Fame they both could be in the Hall of Fame eventually. I don't think Eli's is not in yet, but and R.G. Manning is this beloved figure in Mississippi and New Orleans, and it's like it's a tremendous amount to live up to. I hear you what you're saying about all the talent and everything, but it's a lot to live up to. I mean, all this hype, preseason Heisman favorite and the #1 team in the country and everything, and I just ask if his name was
Ty Simpson.
Arch Ewing.
Ty Simpson. There you go.
Arch Rabelais or something like that. Would there be these expectations for the team or for him? And no, there wouldn't be.
For the team, maybe still. The rest of the roster is loaded. Like they are undeniably top 5. All these top 5 recruiting classes that they've had for the last few years. Now it's starting to come to fruition for them.
I'm sure that's true. But you got to have the straw that stirs the drink, and he's got to be.
Yeah,
he's got to be.
yeah.
I mean, they're starting at Ohio State for God's sake.
I know.
It's
a lot. Yeah.
They're starting with a lot, and they play in the SEC, and you got to get through that gauntlet, and then go in the playoffs. And obviously, they went far last year. And no doubt he's very good and they're very good, but it's just a lot to say that they're going to win it all. The expectation is for him to have and Texas to have a 2019 LSU season with a Heisman Trophy winner and the national championship and win every game, and that's just a lot to ask for a kid who has started, as you say, 1 or 2 games in his career.
I don't think he should be the Heisman favorite. I think that's kind of ridiculous, but to say that he's good enough to get them to where they need to go, I don't think that's too much of a stretch, right? Does he have to be Superman for them to do all that stuff? I think Garrett Nussmeier has to be Superman for LSU to be like national champions or get to the national championship game. But I don't think I think Texas has so much talent that he doesn't necessarily have to be a Heisman favorite for them to, win the whole thing.
That's true. And I just think maybe pump the brakes a little bit. I mean, like, we haven't seen the guy play against anybody other than UL Monroe and like UTSA. Can
Mississippi State.
Oh, he started against Mississippi.
Yeah.
Can we get him against? I mean, forget Ohio State.
Yeah.
We're going to see him against Ohio State, but even against an Arkansas or somebody who's like, yeah, if you don't play well, this team could beat you. He hasn't played against that team yet, so I don't want to say that I'm skeptical because I think I agree with you, Koki. The talent is there, but until we go Heisman favorite and national championship favorite and stuff. Maybe we just need to wait and see just for a minute. But having said that, Wilson picked Texas to win the SEC. You picked
Texas
to win the SEC. So, I mean, you kind of already said your piece on why they're so talented. But look, it's a legitimate operation over there. They don't, to your point, they don't need superstar QB play. They need average QB play, and they're going to be pretty darn good.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some questions with the offensive line, some new pieces coming in there, but like, all those guys are probably high 4-star or 5-star caliber players, and the same can be said at wide receiver. Their defense is bringing back some very core pieces that made that one of the best units in the country last year. I think they're probably going to be the best defense in the nation heading into this year, at least in my opinion. Michael Taffy, the safety's back. Colin Simmons, the superstar edge rusher who was nearly at LSU, he's back for his sophomore season after really flashing last year as a major pass rusher. He really wreaked havoc against ASU in particular in that Peach Bowl. I mean, Anthony Hill, the linebacker. I mean, outside of I think he's maybe the best linebacker full stop in the country. They're loaded on defense, absolutely loaded. And there's no reason for me to think that they're not going to be at least a 10-win team this season. Yeah, and they have the ceiling to be the best team in the country.
That defense is going to be legit. Rab, who did you pick to win the SEC?
I picked Texas too. I went with the chalk. I'm just trying to think of LSU is, it's got these question marks that we've talked about. In Alabama, I'm just not convinced that the killer program that they were under Nick Saban. I got to see it. And Georgia, like Gunnar Stockton, okay, Georgia's taken a little step back, half a step back from what they were earlier this decade. So I'm kind of going with Texas by default, and they went to the SEC championship game last year. They went to the semifinals and playoffs. Somehow beat Arizona State, in the Peach Bowl.
Don't bring up bad memories for Koki, please.
It was a fun game.
It to myself.
It was a very fun game. It was one of the funnest games of the whole playoff. I'm going with the chalk and Texas. But I think those teams, Georgia, Alabama, LSU are waiting there to catch them, to overtake them if they trip up somehow.
I do think Texas makes a lot of sense. Their schedule's really not that difficult outside of the trip to Georgia. We talked about this last year that Texas and Oklahoma came into the SEC, and the conference gave Oklahoma like murderer's row, and they gave Texas like, you got to play Georgia, but other than that, you don't have to play LSU, you don't have to play Alabama, you don't have to play. It's much softer of a landing spot. So, but I saw these three guys. Now this is sort of the behind the scenes here, but I saw Wilson, Koki, and Rab's picks, and then I had to put my picks in on the graphics afterward, and so I didn't want to go 4-for-4 Texas, and so I will gladly play the heel on this podcast and pick the Alabama Crimson Tide to win the SEC. I think Alabama's going to be unbelievable everywhere but quarterback, right? Like that's the question mark. I also think people kind of sleep on Ty. Ty Simpson is not exactly an unknown coming in. This guy's a senior, or at least a fourth-year junior. I mean, he's been in the program a lot. He's actually played in more games than Arch Manning has. Now he hasn't started any. He's only thrown like a handful of passes and stuff. He's mostly coming in at the end, but he's been around that program. He is a known quantity, and I also just really believe in Kalen DeBoer. I think Kalen DeBoer, made Michael Penix into what he is, and I think I just have faith that he will be able to do that. Ryan Williams is one hell of a safety blanket for a new quarterback. They've got a great offensive line. They've got a great defense. And I just think people kind of sleeping on them because they took a baby step back last year. I think Alabama's going to be pretty darn good.
Yeah, I'm very, very high in Alabama as well.
We'll transition into this. Who from the SEC makes the playoff in your eyes?
Yeah, this is a good transition because I have Alabama in, I have LSU in, and I have Texas in. I have those three teams.
Just three?
Just those three.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we can get into the Georgia discussion, but I have pretty major question marks about Gunnar Stockton from what we saw last season. I saw a guy who kind of lacks some ability, not just experience, and I don't think they're quite as loaded on defense as they usually have been. They're going to be good, but I don't know if they're going to be world-beating good. And I think they need to be world-beating good with this quarterback situation that they have. They definitely improved with the weapons at receiver, and I think they'll be fine at running back. But they're replacing pieces on the offensive line. There's a lot more question marks with this Georgia team than we usually get. And as we saw last year, it's no guarantee that the SEC is going to get 4 or 5 teams. So I'm going to go with those three, are probably the most comfortable that I have. And to me, Florida got pretty close, but I think their schedule is just a little bit too tough for me to see them get in, even though I think they have the roster to do it.
Eddie Pels, so the AP, one of the AP national writers, he picked Ole Miss to be in the playoff, and I was like, they're close. You can give them a shot, but I wouldn't say that. Again, I kind of felt like I went with chalk. I did think the SEC is going to get 4 teams, and it's the top 4: Texas, LSU, Georgia, and Alabama. I think any mix of those teams could be. Obviously, what I'm hoping for in the playoff is that LSU and Notre Dame will play each other either in South Bend or in Tiger Stadium or the Rose Bowl. That would be nice if LSU to finally go to the Rose Bowl. That's always been my dream, to cover LSU in the Rose Bowl. But I think they get 4 teams in this year. I think the depth of the conference will show, now you could be having teams cannibalizing each other as well. In the SEC.
That was part of my reasoning too.
That is a concern.
Yeah.
So that's what happened last year, and the SEC ended up with 3 teams in. But even having said that, they had the first 2 teams out in Alabama and South Carolina. They could have easily had 5 in if things broke just a little bit differently. I think 4 is a safe bet. I really think last year was kind of an anomaly, the way that those losses fell for all of those teams. I think 3 is the minimum. I think 4 is more likely. So I'm going to go, I said Alabama's going to win the SEC. I'm going to go Texas. I'm going to go Georgia. I think Kirby Smart finds a way to get them there. I agree with you. Stockton's more of a concern for me than Ty Simpson, but I'm going to go there. I think there will be a 4th team. I honestly think LSU is the next most likely, but since I already picked them at 9-3, and since I'm already playing the heel, I'm going to go with your boy Eddie Pels and says Ole Miss gets in the playoff.
Okay. Wow. Wow, interesting. I think if Ole Miss was going to get in, it was going to be last year. That team should have gotten in. They blew it. Like they had the
They should
roster,
have, yes.
the returning players,
Lost to
the
Kentucky.
whole thing. Like the defense was so
Florida at the
good.
end. Yep. Yeah. No, I agree, and I have some concerns, but I also think like that fourth spot, it could be LSU, it could be Ole Miss. I could see Texas A&M. I could see Oklahoma or Auburn making a run. Like I think there's a lot. South Carolina, or if we were talking about
Oklahoma's
South
closer
Carolina,
than
Florida,
people think they are.
There's a lot of teams that I think could be in conversation for that fourth spot.
And the point of what you're making about I'm talking about the depth of the SEC and a team that could, you were saying LSU they're going to win these games or lose these games, and it's not that easy to say that. Well, Alabama losing last year at Vanderbilt, that knocked them, that kept them out of the playoff, right? I mean, you could see that. Well, would think. You would think Arkansas is not great. Yeah, they beat Tennessee last year, and that it kept them out of the playoffs. So it's well, they were in the playoff. I'm sorry, that's a bad example, but it kept them from having being a higher seed or better a better season. So you never know. So somebody's going to get
Tennessee's
upset.
another one. They could make it a bad like.
One team that you haven't mentioned yet that I know is going to pique Zach's interest that might actually have an outside chance of this is Missouri, because Missouri has like the easiest schedule in the conference.
Yeah,
and if everything goes right, I mean, everything has to go right, but it's not impossible to see them go to the SEC championship game with like one loss. Like
when you got two quarterbacks,
impossible.
you got no quarterbacks, and right now they got two
that's
quarterbacks.
true,
So
but like,
I'm by what you're saying about
to your
Missouri.
point, though, there are like 11, 12 teams in this conference where if you squint hard enough and everything, like you say, everything goes right.
Yeah.
It's not impossible. Like the only teams I would say it's just not happening for you: Mississippi State,
yes, worst
Kentucky.
team.
I think those two clearly,
Yes.
no chance. Vandy, look, I think it's a good story. I think they could be competitive. Can they string together 10 wins? No, I don't think so. And then Arkansas, I same way. Can they be competitive? Could they ruin somebody else's season? Yes. Are they competitive enough to put together 10 wins? I don't think so. So
Can they
those
make a
four,
bowl? Yeah.
those four, I think you take out. The other 12 teams, like if you squint hard enough, and to that point, like I have these odds up. This is odds to make the playoff. Okay, better than even money to make the playoff out of the SEC. Texas, Georgia, Alabama. Okay, LSU is next. They're at plus 110. They're basically even money. Just slightly less than 50-50 to make the playoff. Then you go Ole Miss plus 180, Texas A&M plus 220, Tennessee plus 310, Florida plus 400, Auburn plus 400, South Carolina plus 500, Oklahoma plus 550, Missouri plus 800. Am I missing anybody? I'm kind of scrolling through fast here. Looks like that's about it. So, and then you go Arkansas 16-1. So Missouri is the last one, 8-1. That's like a 12% chance. It's not a good, but it's not like winning the lottery. It's not crazy. So you've got, I think I listed all 12 of those teams that if you squint hard enough, you could make an argument.
I mean, Arizona State, SMU, and Indiana made it, and I'd say all those teams had worse odds going into the season than Missouri does right now. And again, Missouri has that super easy schedule. Like, you could argue that Missouri has a better chance than Oklahoma or Florida because Oklahoma and Florida have these crazy, crazy tough schedules. And again, like, I feel like the scheduling has a lot to do with like how you should pick out.
Yeah,
these
I
teams.
also wonder though against that schedule, like if Mizzou does go 10-2, and you start to get into some arguments, and they say, "Well, look, but they didn't play anybody," and so maybe they even have to go 11-1. I don't know. That's why it's tough. But you're right. If you squint hard enough, you can see it. Yeah. So to that point, we're going to get into our national championship picks to finish up here. But I did want to ask who is this year's Indiana or SMU guys? Who's the team that kind of comes out of nowhere and makes the playoff, and you go, really?
I like Duke a lot.
Ooh, that's a spicy one.
I mean, a lot of returning players on that defense. Darian Mensah at quarterback was the star at Tulane last year. He was one of the best quarterbacks to transfer in the country. They needed an upgrade there, and they got it. And the only real question, I like the offensive line, and really the only real question mark they have is at receiver. And if Andrew Anthony can sort of step up the Oklahoma transfer and stay healthy, that team is pretty good. I mean, they're really well coached with Manny Diaz last year. They had won 9 games, and they're bringing back a lot of players, and they upgraded at quarterback. Like, that's pretty good. If you want like a real dark horse in the ACC, I'd go with them.
All right.
some people are saying Tulane, LSU and
Maybe,
Tulane could both
yeah.
make the playoff this year.
Tulane could be the group of 5 for
Yeah,
sure.
they could be
I mean,
a group of 5 team.
Jake Retzlaff is a big addition. It's a massive addition.
Tulane's 8-1 to make the playoff.
I've heard people mention
Same as-
Navy as being a team. They could be
Okay.
a team there.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna say Illinois. I'm gonna say Illinois.
You stole my pick. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. I actually had 3 lined up, but Illinois was one of them. They got like 17 returning starters on that
Are they
team.
a dark horse though? A lot of people like them. That's my
true.
point.
They
They're not really a
wouldn't
dark
quite
horse
be
to me.
Indiana because Indiana was outside the top 25 and stuff and came from way back.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
The other team that I will point out,
But somebody's
and
gonna
this
be a
has an
group of 5
LSU
teams,
tie
so.
as well. How about Dave Aranda's Baylor Bears?
Ooh.
I think Baylor might
They
be
open with Auburn.
better
right?
than
They
people
they
think.
The offense is going to be great. Like they're
That
going to score a lot of
Baylor-Auburn game
points.
is sneaky, man. The winner of that game, I'm putting them on playoff watch. And then the other one I was going to mention was Texas Tech out of the Big 12, just because all the transfers. I know they had a big injury the other day. Their running back is out for the season. But if you want to see a team try to buy a playoff spot, it worked for them in softball, just saying. And it could work for them in football, too. So I would keep an eye on
They're
Texas Tech.
unprecedented because it's like they have expectations without literally doing anything. You know, like without the history, the program history, the success from last year. Like, I don't know. They're interesting.
That's Nebraska.
Will tortillas be
guys
flying in the
Nebraska's a
playoffs?
good one.
Nebraska's
That's a
an
good
interesting one.
Yeah.
Dylan Raiola at quarterback, sneaky good team, I think. So
Can they get to more than like 5 or 6 wins? That's like
that's
the thing.
There's teams out there. I think one of these teams we threw out there is going to be a surprise playoff team. So, all right, ending the show with national championship picks. Wilson Alexander went with Penn State. We haven't talked a lot about Penn State on this broadcast. I will say if James Franklin cannot get it done in the big games with this roster, he may never get it done.
Yeah, they're about as good of a spot as they'll ever be, especially with Oregon and Ohio State needing to reload this year. They brought back so many returning star players from last year's team. No Abdul Carter, but I'm still pretty optimistic in their defense. They did a pretty decent. I think they upgraded at wide receiver, which is kind of the key of the offseason for them. So I'm not as high on Drew Aller, which is the thing that's kind of stopping me from picking them to win it all, which is why I kind of went with Texas instead.
So Wilson went Penn State. Koki went Texas. We've talked
Texas beating Clemson in the final.
Yeah, we've talked plenty about them, but I do find it interesting that you had Clemson, your preseason number 1, but have them losing the national championship to Texas.
I think their floor is higher than everyone else's, which is one of the main reasons why I had them at number 1. But I don't think they have quite the level of talent in terms of like the depth of talent, the 5 stars like raining down upon them the way that Texas does. And I think Texas is the highest ceiling in the country of all these other teams, and I'm going to go with Texas.
All right. Scott Ravelay.
I also said Penn State. As you said, Ohio State is kind of rebuilding, although they could beat Texas in week 1 at home. Oregon is a little bit off of what they were last year. They were the number 1 seed, and I think it was expected to be that. And Michigan has a postseason ban. Oh wait, Michigan doesn't have a postseason ban. That's right. They had to pay a fine.
So speaking of Missouri, they got a postseason ban for one rogue tutor, and Michigan's like cheating, and they don't. Never mind. That's my.
I know. Right. But it seems like. If not, I guess I just went with Penn State because I don't think Drew Aller is better than some of these other quarterbacks that we've mentioned, but he's good enough. He's dynamic enough. If not this year, when they got a lot of production returning. They went far in the playoff last year. The Big Ten is kind of more open for the taking this year. So if it's not this year for Penn State, then it's never gonna happen.
I feel like with
James Franklin.
Penn State, we say this every single year. If not this year, then when?
That's
but
true.
I feel like it's
That's
more
true.
true this year than ever before.
Penn State's got a real chance. All right, that leaves my pick. And did somebody say heel? I got roll tide, baby. I got Alabama winning the national championship.
You're all in on
Look,
Alabama. Huh?
You want to talk about ceilings, okay? And I know there are question marks about the quarterback, but the highest ceilings in the country, to me, are still Alabama and Ohio State. Because if the quarterback works out, the rest of the roster is freaking stacked, okay? And you talk about Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State, Ryan Williams at Alabama. They've got these dynamic receivers, which I think are game changers. Alabama, they both have great defenses. Like if Julian Sayin at Ohio State or Ty Simpson at Alabama, these 5-star kids, okay? They've got tons of talent. They've got some of the best coaching in the country. I'm not saying it's definitely going to work, but if it does, all of the other puzzle pieces are there. And I think you could be looking at, and like, I know that's boring to say, oh, God, Alabama. People are ignoring them, man. They're going to be really good.
Yeah. Ohio State is a different case to me than Alabama, because Alabama is like bringing back most of their starters on both sides of the ball. And but I look at Ohio State, and they still have to replace 14 guys who went to the NFL. That's a lot.
It is. And that's why I ultimately went
the
with
quarterback. And, you look at each position group, there's question marks for a decent amount of them in terms of like who's going to step up and be the guy. And they'll have enough guys that step up and they're going to make the playoff. I think they'll make the playoff. But like,
is Texas going to go over there with a basically a new quarterback and win at the big
that first
the horseshoe?
game? I don't know. I don't know who to pick in that first game. I really don't. Because the fact that Ohio State's at home is the thing that really kind of throws me for a loop with that game. Because if Texas was at home, I would just pick Texas pretty comfortably.
Sure. That's going to be a fascinating game. Fascinating first weekend.
Auburn's going to beat Alabama in the Iron Bowl this year, by the way.
And then Alabama comes back and wins the national title.
Well, they still can.
So there we go. Okay,
knock them out.
That's our podcast. Those are our predictions. Let us know in the comments how stupid we are and where you disagree, especially with me, since I picked all the teams that LSU fans don't like. Sorry about it. But I do think LSU has a chance at it. And that's really the bottom line here, guys, is like, LSU, to me, is right on that cusp. If they're a little bit better than we think, they're a playoff team. If they're a little bit worse than we think, they're probably not a playoff team. They're right on that cusp.
I think, given the roster that they have no real excuse to miss the playoff. Like, this is one of the 5 to at least 10, if not 5 best rosters in the country, full stop. And if they play up to that potential, they're in. If they don't, then they're at least risking being out, and if not being out. Like I slightly disagree with you, because I just think this roster is really, really freaking good. It's just a matter of the offensive line, right? And can that unit come together in the run game and the pass game? And if they can, then we're looking at a team that's probably gonna make the playoff.
That's been the hallmark of the Brian Kelly era at LSU. Well, this is missing. That part's missing. They could have been a playoff team in 2023 if the defense was decent.
Yeah.
So once again, they have a very obvious Achilles heel, and we're gonna see if they can overcome it.
All right. Our thanks to our producers, Molly Ballinger and Amelia LaCour. Also, messenger extraordinaire Amelia LaCour, who had brought in that very important note for us. Congratulations, Auburn, again. We're happy for you. He's Cookie Riley and Scott Rabley. I'm Zach Ewing, and this has been the LSU Sports Insider.